What's been happening in the Middle East as we reach day 15 of the war?
There were more strikes on Tehran overnight, and US forces struck Kharg Island, where almost 90% of Iran's oil passes through. Donald Trump said military targets there were totally obliterated, but its oil infrastructure was spared. The Lebanese authorities confirmed that 12 medics, including doctors and nurses, were killed in an Israeli strike on a health centre in Burj Kalawaya. There were also Israeli strikes in the Musharraf district of Beirut and the Harat Saida area of Sidon. Iran launched missiles towards central and northern Israel, and Hezbollah rockets were fired towards northern Israel. The US embassy in Baghdad was also struck by an Iranian missile. A drone also hit the port of Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman in the United Arab Emirates, which houses one of the Middle East's largest oil storage facilities, and Iran threatened further attacks on ports in the UAE. The Saudi authorities said they had intercepted multiple Iranian drones and a ballistic missile fired at Al-Kharj.
Our international editor, Lindsay Hilsum, is in Lebanon for us and reports now on the day's main events and the US targeting Kharg Island.
The US said it attacked only military targets on Iran's Kharg Island, including the runway. Not the oil storage units, nor other infrastructure from which Iran exports more than 1 million barrels per day, about 90% of its total energy exports. A warning strike, then. But Iran's Revolutionary Guard is already attacking oil infrastructure in the Gulf, today targeting Fujairah, the UAE's major bunkering hub, located at the east of the Strait of Hormuz, so not restricted by Iran's selective blockade. So much for President Trump's declaration that 100% of Iran's military capabilities have been destroyed.
We announced to the leaders of the UAE that the Islamic Republic of Iran believes it to be its legitimate right, in defense of its national sovereignty and territory, to strike the launch points of enemy American missiles located in shipping ports, docks, and military hideouts sheltered within some UAE cities.
Hard to know who will be convinced by this propaganda video promising that God's storm is on its way. But the Iranians may calculate that they have the greater staying power. More strikes on Isfahan. Having knocked out Iran's defences, the US and Israel have almost total freedom of the air. But it's not clear they're significantly disabling the Islamic Republic's strategic position. They are, however, terrifying civilians, like this woman who wants to remain anonymous.
When Israel or the United States issue warnings asking people to evacuate certain areas, we simply don't see them. How are we supposed to know? Our lives could be in danger. We are constantly worried about the safety of our families and loved ones.
Video released today shows Iranian Red Crescent rescue crews removing the bodies of 4 members of one family who died after a strike in Tehran. So much jeopardy in this war. The price of oil, the destruction of infrastructure across the Gulf, the danger of it spinning out of control, and the deaths of civilians in Iran and beyond, the toll growing higher by the day.
Now, President Trump's latest bright idea that other countries should send warships to open up the Strait of Hormuz has a couple of problems. First, it would bring those countries, and he cited the UK, France, Japan and China, into direct conflict with Iran, and none of those countries are party to this conflict. From the UK point of view, our warships are apparently not in the region. Normally we do have warships in the Middle Eastern region, but they were for some reason withdrawn just before the war. And then you think about China. Well, the Iranians, who export most of their oil to China, are allowing those tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. So China really doesn't have any incentive to do anything because its tankers are getting through. So I think there may be a little problem with President Trump's logic in this one. Now, at the same time as all this, there was an attack today on the US embassy in Baghdad. The missile, it's not clear whether it was fired from Iran or whether it was fired by one of the Shia militias in Iraq, which are allied with Iran. But what it indicates is how this war is widening and how difficult it is for President Trump to contain it.
And Lindsay, what is happening where you are in Lebanon?
Well, there is some talk tonight of the possibility of talks between the Lebanese government and the Israelis as soon as next week. And that is something that the Lebanese government would really want. Those talks would not involve Hezbollah. One thing which is being discussed is the possibility of Lebanon recognizing the state of Israel. That might be hard for it to do. At the same time, there is no let-up. Hezbollah still firing into Israel, and Israel attacked a medical facility overnight in the south of Lebanon. 12 medics were killed. And today Israel said that Hezbollah was using medical facilities and ambulances for military purposes, and therefore they would possibly target ambulances as well. So even if there are talks, there is no sense that the fighting here is going to stop in the short term.
Lindsay, thank you very much. Lindsay in Beirut there. Now, the MOD has confirmed that British counter-drone forces in the Middle East shot down multiple drones overnight as part of the UK's operations to defend its bases in Qatar, Cyprus, the UAE and Bahrain. Well, let's speak now to Dr. Bader Al-Saif, who used to be a Deputy Chief of Staff for the Prime Minister of Kuwait. He's worked in the oil and gas sector and is now an Assistant Professor of History at Kuwait University. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Firstly, I wanted to pick up on that point by Lindsay. What do you make of this call to action, it seems, by Donald Trump to have the UK and its allies help in the Strait of Hormuz? Do you think that's likely? Do you think it would work?
Aisha, good to be with you. We're entering week 3 of the war, and this is a very important question and one that should have been posed before the beginning of the war. If the US president and the US in general wanted the support of their partners, it would have behooved them to have explained their motives and informed their partners of that call to war prior to it, because it put their partners in a very dangerous position, right? Here in the Gulf, I speak to you from Kuwait City, and we're getting a lot of attacks. We just had the latest drone attacks a few hours ago. Other Gulf cities as well are suffering from the same predicament. And we have not even opened up our airspaces or any other military bases for use. So to ask for support with the Strait of Hormuz, I just go back to recent history. We had another strait that faced similar issues, and it's Bab el-Mandeb by Yemen. And you saw the same dynamic. You mentioned the Chinese safeguarding their own tankers, and they did the same thing a few years ago with Bab el-Mandeb, and this is a non-ending cycle. We need to have a clear exit strategy, and the word strategy is key, because what we've been seeing in the past 2 weeks is a lot of tactics across from both sides. From the Iranian side, it's quite clear. Survival to them is a key strategic objective. It's not clear to me where the US and Israeli objectives are, more so on the US side.
In terms of what's going on in Kuwait there, you mentioned that you have had attacks. I do wonder, what is the mood like among Gulf states at the moment? Where do you position yourselves? Where do you find yourselves in this war?
We are not party to the war, and we've been enforced into this war by both sides, unfortunately. The US side that decided to strike on Iran and Israel, and on the Iranian side that decided to take it on the Gulf states because they're going for a war of existence. So they're going to go after any assets that they think are damaging them. But that's been the message from the Gulf states to Iran all along. There is no proof of usage of any of these bases into Iran. And the attacks, Aisha, frankly, have not even they've gone beyond military sites. I mean, we're talking about hotels, we're talking about civilian infrastructure, power stations, oil and gas installations. So it's far-reaching, and this is dangerous because Iran.
Sorry to cut you off there.
Let me end on this note. Iran needs to also think of the day after. We're not going to go anywhere. We're their neighbors, and we need to work on this together.
In terms of an end game, then, let's kind of end on that point. Where do you think this situation is going? The UN has called for a diplomatic solution, but you've got Donald Trump saying one way or the other we're going to have the Strait of Hormuz, and then Iran saying, well, actually, we're going to stop all US ships from going through the Strait of Hormuz. And we've also seen reports of airstrikes over Israeli airspace this evening. Where do you think the end game is?
Look, it may need to escalate further before it quietens down, and they will find a way to talk it through. I'll take you back to what happened yesterday in Iran. They celebrated or commemorated what they call Quds Day, which is Jerusalem Day. And this is key because the Palestine-Israel conflict has been used by various parties across the region as an excuse to fight this out. So we need to not only address the issues with Iran, but we also need to address the issues with the Palestine-Israel conflict, because that's where it started. So addressing the root causes will help us then bring in more peace and calm to the whole region.
Dr. Bader Al-Salaf, thank you very much for your time there. I know we didn't have that much. Good to hear your views from the region. Thank you.